Chosen from among all others by the immortal elders Solomon, Hercules, Atlas, Zeus, Achilles, Mercury, Billy Batson and his mentor travel the highways and byways of the land on a never-ending mission to right wrongs, to develop understanding, and to seek justice for all. In time of dire need, young Billy has been granted the power by the immortals to summon awesome forces at the utterance of a single word. Shazam! A word which transforms him in a flash into the mightiest of mortal beings, Captain Marvel.
Just switched agents. Got a commercial agent. I told my friend, who was the head casting at Disney, I just broken up with a girl. Okay, so I was really down. I said, you know, I need to switch agents. I really need a commercial agent right now. He said, what about Jack Worms? I said, well, I already took something out to Jack. And 6 weeks ago, I never heard anything back. He said, well, let me give him a call. This is the head of casting at Disney, right? 30 minutes later, I get a call back from them. They'd like to see me. Well, come on in. So they signed me, right? Yeah, sure. Like I'm a neat new guy. Oh yeah, we didn't know who you were, so to speak. It's like Steven Spielberg at USC when he donated some money, and he couldn't get into USC. He had to go to Long Beach, and the guy, the chancellor, taking the check and said, well, Steven, if you'd have just told us who you were. Anyway, so I get a call about a week later from a commercial agent that they want me to go out for a Captain Marvel cereal. Well, I'm thinking Captain Crunch, you know, this is a commercial agent, so I'm going to go out for cereal and stuff. So I go out dressed in my normal commercial uniform, white t-shirt, jeans, and cowboy boots, because it's usually a cattle call. And as I'm going out, I get to where the address is, and there's no cars around, because usually you go to a commercial, you can't find a place to park 3 blocks away. So I pull right in and park, you know, and I know, well, it says Filmation Studio. So I go in the main little entryway, and there's nobody in the room there. So I sit down and wait, and presently guy comes out, says, Jackson Boston, yes sir. Bob Chanel, hey, come on back. Well, I didn't realize Bob's the producer. You don't really meet the producer when you go into commercial interview. You have a camera, all right, state your name, you know, that, okay, go ahead and do the stuff, and then thank you very much, and you know, yeah. So I go back, and then during the conversation, I start to realize that this is a Captain Marvel series. And so when I get the pictures out, start showing, and they see some flying sidekicks that I do in karate and stuff. I say, God, you can do fly without wires, can't you? And I start realizing this is Captain Marvel cereal with an S, not with a C. So I tell them, you know, that I grew up watching, reading Captain Marvel comic books. So as we're walking out, later Bob told me, he said, did you notice as you were leaving, the guy that was sitting on the bench in the Farmer John's as you were going out? And I said, no, I did, but I didn't really pay any attention. He said, well, as you came up to me, and as you passed and were going out, because I weighed about 217, and I was competing in judo and kickboxing and stuff. He said, this was, the guy said, wow, now there goes a Captain Marvel. And he was one of the final 4 that was going to be, you know, that they were looking at Captain Marvel. They had been looking for 4 months for Captain Marvel. A guy that's either an actor that was an athlete or an athlete that was an actor. They were finding back and forth, trying to find Captain Marvel. He told me the guy that said that, you know, was Mark Harmon. He had just graduated from UCLA as their star quarterback, and he was in the Final Four. So thank you. I got it. Bob told me, he said, when I heard your voice and saw you smile, and plus the stuff you did, I pretty well knew it was going to be you. And that cinched it right there. But that's what happens, you put on your pants every day, same way, and it's your turn. It's like Joseph Campbell says, just wander and bump into things. Don't try to, you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans for the future. There's no way. I was in pre-med. My dad was a neurosurgeon. And I thought I was going to be a doctor. Major in biology, minor in physics and chemistry, could have triple minored in psychology. Took every course at the University of Alabama. God love them, they lost that ball game last night by 3 points. I had to stay up and watch that whole thing and watch them do that at the end. I couldn't believe it. In overtime. Anyway, I was back there when Bear Bryant was there, so it was like every year we were national champions. So it got to be a habit. But you just have to let it happen. I was in the Army, stationed in Fort Lewis, out measuring I was a medical supply officer, out measuring the flat cars to go to mile as in a mobile surgical unit. Sarge comes up to me and says, the colonel wants to see you in his office. You go to the colonel, he says, you got some orders here, they want you down in Fort Irwin in Southern California in 9 days. Southern California in 9 days, and I'm getting ready to go down. I said, I'm making 5. So go down there, Fort Irwin. Desert Training Center. During Nam, deserted almost. I mean, really, it was Weed Army Hospital. It guards Goldstone tracking station. And that's the one you always see in the Spielberg movie or something, the big dishes out there that are pointing up the stones. It's out there. I mean, we're talking about 35 miles from Death Valley, 35 miles from Barstow, right in the middle. And I was also flying out there, getting a private license. I'd already lined up to get my ticket for that. And I used to fly out of Dry Lake Beds. That was where we flew out of. No landing strip, just like Dry Lake Beds. So I'm on going, minding my own business. One day I get a little postcard in the mail from the dating game saying, yes, we'd like to see you for dinner. Well, which one of you guys, one of my secretaries said, which one of you guys, Lieutenant, you gotta go. So I go down there. Brilliant in the interviews. I get on, I'm bachelor number 1. I get on the show, and you freeze, because they tell you can't say the F word, you can't say this, and don't say S, and don't say this, and none of those words. And so you feel like you just, terrible. But, didn't get the date. As they say, you didn't lose, you just weren't selected. But there was a scout from Paramount in the audience that day. And so, came up to me, and I was in, of all things, they wanted me in uniform. Of course, in the Nam era, not like it is now. I mean, you were just like a pariah. You come in the room. So he said, you ever done anything? Thought about acting. I said, I've never done anything in my life. I have one of them southern accents like that. Never done anything. Because I was raised in Montgomery, Alabama. And he, why don't you get some training? Well, I passed my medical entrance drawings with drawing DIE before I left, because I couldn't do anything. Couldn't remember the job, all that stuff in my mind after 2 years ago. So I told him, I said, well, all right. And he said, well, get some training, come back and see. So I asked my dad, here I'm asking professionally. He said, well, as long as you continue your schooling, go ahead. Well, there were only 2 schools I knew of out there. And one of them happened to be playing Alabama that year. And I said, if it's good enough for the Bear, it's good enough for me. And that was USC. John McCain is still there. The other one's UCLA. So I go over to USC. Now listen, get it, never done a thing. No acting, no nothing, strictly science. So I go in, it was a summer afternoon, school's not a lot of people there. Asked the guard, direct me to where the arts, the drama program. Of course, when you're walking through campus, the park, you go through the science area, and it looks like Metropolis. the movie Metropolis, all in the future and stuff. Beautiful buildings. Then you get to the arts area, and it looks like a set from a Sergio Leone movie, you know, a spaghetti western. You expect to see a tumbleweed go through there. The buildings look dilapidated and nearly falling over. I go up the building, hello, it echoes through the building, nobody's there. I go up to the third floor. Finally, I see smoke coming out of the room. I go up to the room, and there's a sort of wheezing little guy reading at the time, I didn't know, it's a dramatist playbook. I forgot what it was, but he was reading something. I knock on the door, and hi, I was wondering if y'all taking any new people, and I'd sure like to see about getting y'all's acting class. Just like that. And I know I caught him off guard, and I mean, he's looking at me, and he said, well, have you ever done anything? I know, sir, but I've been going to movies since I was 5 years old. He said, well, and then he starts talking in an accent. Well, it sure does. He starts talking like me. And to make it short, he said, come back in a couple of days. We're starting a new thing over here called an MFA company. Okay. Had no idea what an MFA company was. And that's a new thing that was coming around in the schools. You used to go, you go to a master, MA or an MS. MFA, that was a Master of Fine Arts. You don't know what MAs always go up to the next level, which is PhD. MFA, that's as high as you can go. So this was a whole new thing. They hadn't even had the BFA program started. So he said, come over a couple of days. Well, this guy hand walks you through the process. And I'm one of the original 11 members of the Masters Company at USC. John Ritter was still an undergraduate. Michael King, I can go down the list. They called me back to do a play after I graduated with Dorothy McGuire. A lot of you guys don't know who that is. She played the mother in Little Yellow. Oh yeah, I remember that. She also won the Academy Award for Enchanted College. She's a brilliant actress. To do the grand opening of Bing Theater, I did Sweet Word of Youth with her. And Alex Siegel directed me in that. He was I played the part that Tom Jr. did in the movie that did with Geraldine Page and Paul Newman. And it was the Rip Torn part. He's the bad guy. He had called me back originally to do the Chance Wayne part, but because of my reading for the Rip Torn part of Tom Jr., he said, Jackson, you're too powerful for Dorothy, you'll kill her. But can you consider taking this part? Well, I did. And it turned out to be the best part of the movie because I got an exit clause every night. The opening night, and as I say, the Bing Theater is USC in their campus. They have the Norris Theater's the cinema, which I could have gotten a double MFA here. And you have the television department, then you have Lucas Building over here. Uncle George gives money to it. And then you had the Big Theater for theater. And sold out every night because it only ran for a week. 600 seats, 650 seats or something. The opening night, I picked out the curtains, and it's like a who's who. You have Henry Fonda, Gregory Peck, Rhonda Fleming, Jimmy Stewart. And I'm looking at all these people, and I've got to go out there and do this thing. So I got extra applause every night in my scene, they call it the thing. So what I'm saying is, you think you know what you're going to be. Don't. If you get pushed off to one side, go with it. What happens is if you find yourself beating your head against the wall, wondering why things aren't working for you, back off. It may not be right for you right now. Try this other way. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to lose track of what track you're going on. You just take a spur and come back. You may come back up your lane. Then again, you may not. Just do it like that, and things will work out. I never thought, if you'd have told me I was going to be an actor when I was in college, I'd see you're a damn fool.
Good, how you doing, man?
No offense to anybody, I thought all actors were gay. I didn't even know who Lawrence Olivier was. I knew who John Wayne was. Never heard of these people. Alabama? Actors. Yeah, I know what actors are. Give me one of them actors. So, that's how I got into it. And first year out, I was doing movies on the wall. I did Evel Knievel while I was in school. Evel Knievel with George Hamilton, Sue Lyon. Sue told me we had a big love scene. She and I had to make out, I love this, had to make out, in a car. She played the original Lolita. If you haven't seen the original Lolita in black and white, you've got to rent that. I mean, she is Lolita.
Yeah, it's all right.
With James Mason and Shirley Winters. Shirley Winters. So anyway, I forgot what I was saying. Did that, and she told me, she said, Jackson, George has his way, you're going to be out of this movie. I had a big fight scene with him where I beat the crap out of him, beat him up as Evel Knievel. And one of the guys, George's idea of selling a punch, when you hit him, and they kept saying, you know, you got George's idea, here's the camera, he'll sell it like this, his face is still in the camera. So this time, I'm getting tired, the director coming, Jackson, you know, come on, you got it. So this time I really come up, because I was trained in martial art, I didn't want to hurt the guy. So I grab him like this, and I'm stinging, I'm really right over the heart. Ow, like that. Whoa, like this, and I grab him, grab him over here, wham, right, because the camera's here, and you set it up so it, look, and I remember them telling me, be sure now, don't hit his caps, those are $2,000 worth of caps. But I swung him around and knew he wasn't going to sell it, so I pushed him out at the same time, so he went flying back. Cut, perfect. He's on the ground picking himself up. Well, anyway, they cut that scene out. I got a picture, a still picture of it, of my fist coming through like this in the camera. Sue was standing behind me, and his head is a blur as he's going back. Perfect shot. I got a still that'll be in my book when I finally get the darn thing out. The text is finished. I just got to get it organized and put together because I'm going to self-publish. Big Louis Ferrigno said that's the way to go. You just self-publish. And nowadays you can do that. I mean, it's fairly easy. So anyway, did that. I did. My first movie was called The Late Liz with Ann Baxter. I can't find myself in that movie. And even the guys I did see was Steve Forrest and these different guys, James Gray. Where did that scene go? Where did they go? You know, it's like they changed the whole movie. I still get residuals for it. Still get residuals for Tron. I did. Of course, that was in the 80s after the show. But while I'm in school, I'm doing all these shows. And I remember Ritter. I did several plays with John, and he had gone out and done some stuff out at Disney. I think he did one of the Herbie things. And then, so they called me out to do the professors were suggesting, you know, they come out and see this Boston kid. So they had a thing they were going to do. It was called The World's Greatest Athlete. They wanted me up for that. So I went out, and John had already told me that when you go out to Disney, they do you what they call a personality test. So I was prepared for it. Well, walked out, talked to Bill Shepard, who was the head of casting, and Marvin Schneider, those guys. So Jackson wanted to do a little thing with you. Hey, I know what's going on. So they put you in a little room, and I'm telling you, it's the size of a closet. It's almost like you open your closet, you know, and there you are. There's a stool in there, and a camera. Okay, Jackson, you want to sit on the stool right there? He gets behind the camera. Okay, Jackson, what's your name? Go ahead and tell me your name. Jackson Buffett. All right, Jackson, tell us a little something about yourself. And then he shuts the door. And you're there with the camera, sitting on the stool by yourself. And for 5 minutes, you have to sit and talk to yourself about yourself to the camera. That's their personality. Because they know, first couple of minutes, you pretty well can go along. Toward the end, getting down to the last third minute, fourth minute, by that time you run out of a lot of the stuff that's right on the top of your head, and your real personality starts coming out. That's why they call it personality. So I was ready. Man, I started talking about hunting and fishing, and Alabama football, everything down the line. I just, all of this stuff just coming together. Yeah, I've gone down to New Orleans and Sugar Bowl and all that stuff. And I shot on the rifle team, I was #1 shot in the Southeastern Conference, just talking like this. He comes back in and I'm still talking. And they shut it off. And so I did about 13 movies. I not only did Gus, Tron, Cat from Outer Space. I did voices for Cat from Outer Space, Apple Dumpling Game, Devil and Max Devlin, Zorro, Secret of Lost Valley. In fact, that was the last film that Vic Morrow directed before he got chopped up with that helicopter thing during Twilight Zone. He directed that. He did all those combat series when he was on television. And my science project, and you know, a lot of. In that one, I answered myself on the walkie-talkie. They had me come back and dub another voice, so I'm actually talking to myself on the walkie-talkie. I dubbed a lot of the voices in Tron for the guards because we're behind the, you can't really see our face on the head guard and the guy that pushes around, but they had to come back and dub voices for all the guys. So we had a good entourage. They all sounded pretty close to the same, like they were, clones of everybody.
Yeah, that makes sense for Tron.
Yeah, it makes it done it, yeah. The original Tron. So, any questions anymore?
Shazam was the first live-action series that Filmation.
Well, yeah, they did.
Was there a learning curve for them?
Learning curve. They brought in ISIS, which was a sort of a weaker rip-off of Shazam.
Yeah.
Almighty ISIS.
Yours was the first live-action that Filmation.
They did Filmation. It was a test for CBS that year. They did 4 live-action shows. This was big for them back then because they didn't want to spend the money for Saturday mornings. In fact, our shows cost $75,000 an episode. We shot a show every 2.5 days, 2 a week. So this was big. Now, Filmation had done one of my favorites, The Lone Ranger, in cartoon form. They didn't do Space Ghost. That was another Hanna-Barbera thing, which I loved. But they were an animation studio. So for them to do live action, yes, this was big. The 4 shows were Shazam, the Hudson Brothers, Tony Orlando and Dawn, and Harlem Globetrotter and their Popcorn Machine. Those were the 4 live action shows for Saturday morning that CBS was going to do. Fred Silverman was still the head guy out there and okayed it. Well, when we did the show, they didn't realize how big it was going to be. Nothing could touch Shazam, nothing. We had higher Nielsen ratings than I Love Lucy. We had a 38 Nielsen rating. Lucy had 36. Now, we weren't competing with it, but I'm talking about Nielsen ratings. And Lucy was the #1. But I remember kids from Land of the Lost and all this, God, we hate being opposite you guys. Or all the shows that were opposites on other channels. But then they brought in the first 4 months, or 3 months, they didn't have the end tags that Captain Marvel flies in to talk to the kids. They didn't want to give up the 60 seconds of commercials. And I told Bob Chanel, I said, Bob, you're missing the whole thing. The Lone Ranger comes back and says, who was that master? And talks to me. You have Cisco and Pancho. Oh, Cisco up there. They come back and talk. You have Sergeant Preston of the Yukon. Well, King, this case is closed. All of these things come back and they talk to the audience. Well, after the 3 months and the fan mail coming in, Bob comes and approaches me and well, they decided to want to do the tag, what you suggested. I said, well, good. So he said, we're going to shoot it in 1 day. So I shot all 15 of the tags in 1 day out at Franklin Canyon Reservoir, which is right in the middle of Bel Air in California. I mean, here you all these swank houses. You've got this one little reservoir that looks like it's in the North Woods. I mean, it's beautiful setup out there. Everybody films up there. That and Bronson Canyon, where if you look on some of the scenes that have the people coming out of in the old serials especially, out of these caves and rocks. Well, if you look right up above, the Hollywood sign will be right above. So if you look real close on those 15, it was raining that day. And they got me a big umbrella, and I'm under it, and they got sun lamps on me, but in the background you can see that rain just coming down on the back. And I say, when they came in on me and did that close-up, the protector on the camera is right here, and the lens is about this far from me, and I'm looking at the shutter going up and down on the lens as I'm talking. So, it's I think made the show to have that. Everybody talks about this is the one that they waited for. Because I always waited on the Lone Ranger, waited on that end where, who was that masked man? You know, everybody waited on it. Or the Cisco and Pac. Well, everybody, oh, Cisco, oh, Pancho, adios, you know, and seeing them ride off. And same with the, everybody waits to see that. It really paid off. Now, I noticed on TV Land they showed it, but they didn't show the tags. They put it in a sort of a teaser episode in the second box set of Wonder Woman from Joyride. They didn't put the tag in. Why, I don't know. But all the shows that I have in mind that I give away for free if you buy some artwork, it's something that I make sure that you have the tags. So, anyway, that's what happened. Any other questions you got?
No problem. And I have
martial arts career and some of the luminaries that I trained with over the years. Ask you how did you get involved in martial arts?
Well, when I was in the Army, I was stationed at first at Fort Sam Houston, and I got into judo first. There was a good guy out there that taught judo, and I really got interested in it because I was big, and I said I was doing a lot of heavy lifting and stuff. So judo was a natural for me to get into. And then when I got transferred up to Fort Lewis, I couldn't find a good judo guy up there. So Steve Armstrong, who I didn't know anything about, was in Ishiru Karate, and I never heard of Ishiru Karate. But I just happened to stop in his dojo and was interested in, watching one of the things, and so I signed up for it. And so I really started training with Steve Armstrong in Ishiru. And one of my first tournaments that I was in, Chuck Norris, Joe Lewis, Ed Parker, and Steve Armstrong were the judges in that. And I became friends with Chuck Norris. And Chuck said, if you're ever down in Southern California, well, I never thought I'd ever be in Southern California. I said, look me up, So, fate had it. I was transferred to Southern California. And so I looked up Chuck, and he had a dojo that he had just opened in Torrance, California. I think it was on Torrance Boulevard. And so I went down and signed up with him. And of course, every time you switch a style, he's takes, every time you switch, you start, so I still have my original white belt card signed by Chuck from that studio. And he hadn't started doing movies yet. He had not done any of the breakers and good guys wear black or whatever it is. Terrible movies, Chuck. But it was fun to watch because he was the hot guy with the, and then of course he came out with Bruce Lee in the second Enter the Dragon. And now Bruce was, I talked to Bob Wall. I was on the police training team with from in Buddha Jiu-Jitsu, which is another style I took with Al Thomas. And I was with Joe Lewis and Chuck Norris and Bob Wall and Benny the Jet, and Bill Wallace, Superfoot, all of those guys were on this police training team. And I was a weapons specialist. Of course, and you were talking about getting thrown. I'm the one that gets thrown over the tables too with all those guys. But I can still remember going out, and we had to qualify with the weapon out at the range for the LPD. And Bob Wall brought a butt line. I mean, it's a butt line. And it's supposed to be one that you carry on, that you would be carrying with you or whatever. And he brings a butt line. And Chuck, they had everybody else that qualified. One of the best ones was David Chow. Chow was a very good shot. Very good shot. David and I became very good friends. And he was, of course, the coordinator on Kung Fu with Carradine, and I did a couple of movies with David. But anyway, he didn't qualify the first second, so he was still out there when everybody else was leaving. Chuck was still out there trying to hit the targets, so he could qualify. But yeah, so that's how I got it. And then I ran into a guy, his sister, who's now dead. I can't think it was Dan's sister. Anyway, she's dead now. But I became good friends, and she said, "What do you need to trade with my brother?" And I said, who? He said, Dan. And I said, oh, he's the guy that with the red bandana that fights Bruce Lee in Game of Death just before Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I said, yeah. So I said, well, I'm going down to do it. And she said, now he trains, he does a lot of Jeet Kune Do, but he also does Wing Chun, which is a great trapping handstand, and it's a Filipino comedy, stick screen. So I said, well, okay. So I went down and so I trained with Dan for 3 or 4 years. Just and Jeff Amata was his main man guy. Jeff was the guy that gaffed the stunts on the pro. And when Brandon got killed, we got shot with the blank. And, you know, they thought it was a blank. That's tragic. But yeah, so I put Jeff in his first little film. He couldn't even sell a punch. He's so fast. It was just like Bruce told Dan. He said, Dan, you know, he saw him in a tournament, and Dan lost. And Bruce came back and said, you won. You won. They didn't see it. I did. You were fast. And that's why they became very good friends. Dan taught Bruce how to use the nunchuck and stick to him. So that's how I got in there. Anybody else? Yes. No, I knew Linda. Bruce died just before I was out there in Southern California at the time, and he died just before because I remember going to see Fist of Fury, and I said, "You guys, God, this is great." And then the next thing I know, and he was the hottest thing. Then Game, you know, Enter the Dragon came out because I know John Saxon, and I just done a couple things. John was with my agent, and also who was the black guy that was in? Jim Kelly. I just did a thing with Jim, and Bob Wall. I didn't know Jim was still around doing stuff like that. But, yeah, so is Bob. Bob's doing real estate, I think. Yeah. He gave me his card and said, "Yo, look me up. Sell me a house, Bob." So yeah, that's how I. What was your question?
Did you ever actually spy with
Spy
with Bruce Lee? Did you ever fight with Bruce Lee?
Oh no, I never did. I never got a chance to. But I said with Linda, I went a couple of times. We went out when Dan was doing some of his seminars, and I got a chance to talk to Linda. Very sweet lady. And then Dan's daughter, and then I did get to meet Brandon. And talk with him. But never did get to see Bruce. Well, anybody else? No other questions? I enjoyed doing this with you guys. Let's get back to the show and see what we can do.
Chosen from among all others by the immortal elders Solomon, Hercules, Atlas, Zeus, Achilles, Mercury, Billy Batson and his mentor travel the highways and byways of the land on a never-ending mission to right wrongs, to develop understanding, and to seek justice for all. In time of dire need, young Billy has been granted the power by the immortals to summon awesome forces at the utterance of a single word. Shazam! A word which transforms him in a flash into the mightiest of mortal beings, Captain Marvel.